Picture a tiny baby, gently floating in a basket on the mighty Nile River. His fate uncertain, his future unwritten. This is the beginning of one of history's most extraordinary stories, a tale that has inspired millions for generations. This is Moses, a figure whose life was marked by courage, miracles, and unwavering faith. From humble beginnings, he would rise to become a leader, a prophet, and a symbol of hope for an entire nation. Born at a time when the Israelites were enslaved in Egypt, Moses' mother risked everything to save him from Pharaoh's cruel law, which demanded that all Hebrew baby boys be killed. With a mother's love and desperate hope, she hid him for as long as she could, then placed him in a basket, trusting the river to carry him to safety. Pharaoh's daughter discovered the helpless child among the reeds, and moved by compassion, adopted him as her own. Moses grew up in the splendor of the Egyptian palace, learning the ways of royalty, but deep inside, he never forgot his true heritage or the suffering of his people. As a young man, Moses witnessed the harsh treatment of the Israelites. Unable to ignore their pain, he intervened to protect a fellow Hebrew, an act that forced him to flee Egypt and leave behind the only life he had ever known. In the vast, lonely desert, Moses became a humble shepherd. It was here, far from the world he once knew, that he encountered God in the form of a burning bush, a moment that would change his destiny forever. God called Moses to return to Egypt, to stand up to Pharaoh, and to lead the Israelites out of bondage. Though he doubted himself, Moses accepted this daunting mission, trusting in a power greater than his own. Despite his fears and the immense challenges ahead, Moses confronted Pharaoh again and again. Through faith and perseverance, he witnessed astonishing miracles, plagues, wonders, and the unforgettable parting of the Red Sea, which allowed his people to escape to freedom. For 40 long years, Moses led the Israelites through the harsh wilderness, guiding them through trials and teaching them to trust in God. He became not just a leader, but a teacher and a source of strength for his people. On Mount Sinai, Moses received the 10 Commandments, divine laws that would shape the moral foundation of a new nation and influence countless generations to come. Acting as the bridge between God and the Israelites, Moses led his people on an incredible journey of faith, hope, and transformation, helping them discover their identity and purpose. The story of Moses is a timeless tale of hope, leadership, and trusting in a greater purpose, a reminder that even in the darkest times, one person's faith and courage can change the course of history. Moses' story isn't just about miracles. It's also about facing moments that challenge our understanding and faith. Alongside the wonders, there are times in his journey that are difficult to accept or even to make sense of. Sometimes, God gave Moses commands that seem harsh or severe, such as punishing those who broke important laws or betrayed the community's trust. For example, when the Israelites worshipped a golden calf, the consequences were swift and severe, leaving many to wonder why such strict measures were necessary. These stories can be confusing and even upsetting, especially for those of us who deeply value every human life and struggle with the idea of punishment. But it's important to remember that these events took place in a world very different from ours, where survival was often uncertain and unity was essential for the community's safety. The rules and consequences were designed to protect the people from harm, to keep them together, and to help them survive in harsh conditions. Asking questions about these stories is a natural and important part of faith. People have wrestled with their meaning and struggled to understand them for thousands of years. By exploring these difficult moments, we open ourselves to deeper thinking about justice, mercy, and what it truly means to follow God, even when the answers aren't easy. To understand these tough commands, it helps to see the bigger picture. The Israelites were a small, vulnerable group, and unity was crucial for survival. Breaking God's core rules, like worshiping other gods, threatened the whole community. Think of it like strong medicine, harsh, but meant to save everyone from greater harm. These actions were tied to a covenant, a serious promise between God and the Israelites. When the promise was broken, the consequences were severe to show its importance. The Bible teaches that God is just, even when we don't fully understand. Sometimes the hardest stories are about protecting the future and keeping hope alive. You're not alone if these stories trouble you. People have debated them for centuries. Some see them as records of God's justice for that time. Others think the stories reflect ancient cultures and human understanding. Many focus on the Bible's bigger themes: love, forgiveness, and redemption. Some accept that parts of faith are mysterious, trusting God's goodness even when answers aren't clear. Faith isn't about having all the answers, but about seeking understanding and trusting God's character. These stories invite us to approach them with humility and open hearts. There's no single answer. What matters is thinking, discussing, and learning from them. They challenge us to reflect on justice, mercy, and the nature of God. One lesson from these stories is about trust. Trusting that there is meaning, even when we can't see it right away. It's like seeing only one tile in a giant mosaic, a single piece that doesn't make sense on its own. Up close, a single event may seem confusing or dark, and sometimes it feels like life is just a collection of random, puzzling moments. But faith is stepping back to see the whole picture, realizing that every moment, even the hard ones, fits into a larger design. People of faith believe God is the artist, carefully arranging each piece with intention and love. He is weaving every moment into a greater story, one that we may not fully understand yet, but is beautiful in its entirety. Some of the most difficult questions arise when we read about God commanding Moses to do things that seem harsh, even involving the innocent. Why would a loving God allow or command such actions? Theologically, some believe these commands must be understood in the context of ancient times, a world marked by violence, tribal conflict, and survival. For the Israelites, these moments were part of a larger story of identity, justice, and the struggle between good and evil. Others interpret these passages as deeply symbolic or as reflections of the people's understanding of God at that time, rather than direct expressions of God's ultimate will. Some suggest that these stories challenge us to wrestle with the mystery of God's justice and mercy. The Bible says we see through a glass darkly. Our understanding is limited, like looking through foggy glass where only shapes and shadows appear. Trusting God's plan gives hope, even in mystery, and helps us move forward with courage when life feels uncertain. When we read challenging stories or face difficult moments in our own lives, we can choose to lean in and trust even with our questions, knowing that it's okay not to have everything figured out. Faith means holding our doubts and sadness, allowing ourselves to feel deeply, but not losing sight of hope. It's about keeping our hearts open to a bigger belief in God's goodness, even when life is hard. It's confidence in the artist, trusting that the masterpiece is still being created, even when the picture isn't clear, and believing that, in time, the beauty of the whole story will be revealed. What can we learn from these ancient stories today? They remind us to be thankful for how far we've come in understanding mercy and compassion. The Bible's clearest message is to love God and our neighbors. These stories teach us to be humble, to listen, and to seek understanding. We're called to choose kindness, forgiveness, and to care for the vulnerable. Even difficult stories can inspire us to bring more light into the world. Let's learn from the past and build a future filled with empathy and hope. That's a lesson worth carrying forward.